This is the building Mozart was born in 1756. The family lived here together, the two parents, Anna Maria Mozart and Leopold Mozart. The sister Maria Anna was born in 1757, 2 years before Mozart. They had a very happy life here, very normal family life. But then on an evening when Mozart was about 6 years old, there happened something very miraculous, because the father was performing here with a friend, and suddenly Mozart went to the piano and started playing on it, repeating the melody he had heard before. And that was the moment when the father recognized that he was raising a child prodigy. Mozart was at this turning point of music history. So if you listen to his very early compositions, you still have this very Baroque character. And then he did something very smart. Wherever he was traveling to, he was picking very typical elements of music of the country he was currently in, and put that traditional melodies, type of music into his own compositions. And that ends up in the result that is very fascinating. That you have a unique oeuvre of Mozart that was so rich of new melodies, of new themes of compositions. And then, of course, at a later point we had these amazing operas. And wherever he came to, people were thrilled and fascinated about him. And he was celebrated whenever his premieres were taking place at the opera houses all over Europe. So it was quite unique that you have a traveling artist that was performing all over Europe. People normally applied at courts. They were working at courts. They were working for one ruler of the time, and not at several courts at the same time. So you can say that he was really touring. So he was kind of a pop star of the time, actually. So we're here in a very old building. It's a building that dates back to the 14th century, meaning that although this apartment looks very spacious today with around 150 square meters, at the time it was not that luxurious as it looks like today. You have to imagine, if you were living on the upper floors of the building, that means that you had to carry everything up. There was no water at the time. You needed firewood for heating and for cooking, so it was a quite complicated life. It was cold, it was windy. The family shared a kitchen together with the other apartments here. The kitchen always was situated outside the apartment, because due to the risk of a fire or incident. And then we have here the apartment of the family that had 4 rooms. And there was one good thing about it: there was no building in the opposite of this one. That means that he had a lot of light coming in, and that makes this apartment way brighter than the apartments downstairs. This is the living room. It's a very spacious room, it's a very bright room, and this was the center of everyday family life. Means the family was having lunch here, they had their dinners here, they were inviting friends. You have to imagine that Leopold Mozart and Anna Maria Mozart were considered the most famous couple here in town. So people also considered them to be the most beautiful couple. So this was the very center of also society life of the time. And it was also in this very exact room where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was doing his very first compositions when he was aged 5 years or 6 years old. The most important room, of course, is the birth room, or so this is the room, the very room where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on January 27, 1756, 8 p.m. in the evening. We know that this was the bedroom at the time, also due to the correspondence of the family. And this is a very intimate place, and people from all over the world come to this room here to get an idea or sense of this very talented genius, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. It's also dedicated to the last few of personal belongings from the property of Mozart. For example, his purse, some other personal belongings, and a very interesting collection is a collection of original hair. So we have here a lock of Mozart given by Constanze Mozart to the foundation. The violin for us it's very touching that we have the possibility hearing also Mozart's compositions for violin on the instrument he played himself. His compositions were very complex and difficult to play, so he very often performed the premieres of his symphonies or works for orchestra and violin by himself, just to making sure that everything was arranged perfectly. So we're here surrounded by a couple of portraits showing Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and what you can see at the very first glance is that he looks different in every portrait. The reason is quite simple. There are only a few paintings that were done during the lifetime of Mozart. We own almost all of them except two. And in fact, we also know that from descriptions of the family, he was very tiny, he was ugly, which not I'm saying, but we know it also from letters of his sister Maria Anna. And people nonetheless loved him a lot because he was he had a very good sense of humor, was a funny person, and whenever he entered a room, people were immediately attracted by his spirit and humor. At a later point after his death, people created new images of Mozart, very simple to the fact that a person that died that young, aged 35, and having done such a huge oeuvre, must have looked to a certain degree divine and not a very tiny, ugly guy. So that's the reason why we have all these fictive images of Mozart that were developed on a later stage. This is the famous last one that was done by Mozart's brother-in-law, Joseph Lange, and again this shows Mozart in a very intimate moment. And if you look at the painting very closely, you see that he wears his real hair, so it's not covered by a wig. You see his face. He had some serious illnesses when he was young, the pox, for example, so he had scars in his face. So this is probably the most authentic and most intimate image that we have of Mozart today. So the most interesting part in the biography of Mozart is, of course, the period around his death. They're ranking a lot of myths about this last weeks and moments of Mozart. We have the whole relationship with Salieri. Some people say that it was poisoned and so on. In fact, it was not true. From today's point of view, we consider that Mozart just was exhausted. He was doing his major opera works before the Da Ponte Cyclus with the Nozze di Figaro, Clemenza di Tito and so on. He finished the Magic Flute a couple of weeks before his death. He was working on the Requiem. He was sick, so probably it was just all that together that he unfortunately died at a certain point. Another myth is that he was buried in a mass grave. That's also not true. Actually, his friends organized a requiem for Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. It was just the law of the time, and the rules that were given by the emperor that families were not allowed to accompany the convoy with the coffin to the cemetery. The cemetery was located outside the city of Vienna, so it was the normal setting of the time. And then, of course, we have the fact that Mozart left a widow, Constanze Mozart, and two children. Constanze Weber was an very important figure. She actually was very hardworking after the death of Mozart. She published his complete oeuvre together with Breitkopf. The later company Breitkopf and Hertel were famous in Frankfurt. She wrote the biography of Mozart together with her second husband Nissen, and altogether it's thanks to her that we have this continuously performances and knowledge about Mozart's work and oeuvre, because people had the chance to buy his notes, his compositions, performing them, and that's the reason why we have in the 19th century, in the 20th century, this real cult around Mozart. So that's all thanks to Constanze.